Now, to finish this unit, let's take a look at how to divide fractions. Now, fractions, I remember we talked about multiplying fractions last week. We we just multiply straight. So multiplying fraction was pretty simple. Now, division is not going to be that much harder. Now, for division, one thing that we like to say is multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so what does that reciprocal word means? What I'm going to do is like the second fraction, I'm going to flip it. Whatever's up, I'm going to bring it down, and whatever's down, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So let me write this as 5 over 6 times, because I'm going to switch it to multiplication, 7 over 3. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So multiplied and flip the second fraction. Now, one thing, my fractions cannot be mixed numbers. Remember, mixed numbers is when we had a number in front of it. Now, cannot be mixed numbers. We're going to see some examples in a minute. What happens when we have mixed numbers? But for this case, let me just multiply 5 over 6 times 7 over 3. Before I multiply my numbers, let me simplify. What I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my numbers. I'm going to divide two numbers. One of them has to be on top of a fraction, and the other one has to be at the bottom of a fraction. Could be from the same fraction, could be from different fractions. All right, I'm going to divide two numbers, trying to make them smaller. I see a 6 and a 3. I'm like, oh, I can divide each by 3. 6 becomes 2, 3 becomes 1. However, I see they're both at the bottom of the fractions. So I'm not going to do this. It has to be a number from the top and a number from the bottom. Okay, so I cannot simplify. So I'm just going to multiply straight across. On the top, I have 5 times 7. That's going to give me 35. At the bottom, 6 times 3. It's going to give me 18. If the big number was on top, nice, I'm done. If the big number was on top, my big numbers at if the small number was on top, I'm done. But in this case, the small number is at the bottom, so I have to fix this. I remember yesterday we saw division of integers. 18 goes into 35. Then I asked myself, okay, how many times does 18 go into 35 without going over? I think it's only one. Let me try one, because 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. When I subtract this 3 becomes 2, and this becomes 15. 15 minus 8 is 7, and 2 minus 1 is 1. My remainder is less than 18, so that's good. It only went in once. So with my remainders, with my 17 and my 18, I'm going to make a fraction. Now I'm going to put my remainder over my 18th. So my answer is going to be 1 and 17/18. Now, how am I going to type this? Okay, let's see, because I cannot type fractions here in Canvas. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a 1, where I'm going to type in my whole number. Let me emphasize with this here. Let me emphasize there's a space. So I'm going to type in 1 space bar. Now 17 over 18. We're going to use the backslash right there at the bottom on the right of our keyboard. So I'm going to write 17 backslash 18. So it looks like 1 and 17 over 18. Don't forget the space between the 1 and the 17. If you don't type in the space, it's going to look like 117 over 18. Yeah, that's not right. So don't forget the space. My signs were both positive. I was dealing with only positive, so my answer is positive, so we're good to go. Now let's take a look at number 20. To begin with, my second fraction is a mixed number. My first fraction is a -1 over 3, which we're good. And then it says divided by 4 and 1/8. Okay, I have a mixed number today, but I said in the previous example that I can only have a number on the top and a number at the bottom. Cannot have mixed numbers. My fraction does keep with an 8 at the bottom. My problem is my number on the top of the fraction. What I'm going to do, let me multiply these two numbers. So 4 times 8, and whatever I get, I'm going to add it to the top. I know 4 times 8 is 32. When I add it to the top, 1 plus 32 is 33. So 4 and 1/8 is the same thing as 33 over 8. Okay, so now I'm going to convert this as -1 over 3 times 8 over 33. Remember, I have to change it to multiplication. I have to do the reciprocal of the second fraction. I'm going to ignore the negative sign for right now. I'm just going to multiply it. I look if I can simplify, if there's a number on the top and the bottom that I can make smaller. I cannot. So let's take a look. On the top, I'm going to multiply 1 times 8. At the bottom, 3 times 33. When it comes to sign, I see one negative sign, so my answer is negative. How am I going to type this? -8 over 99. Notice I use the backslash for the fraction. You don't have to put a space between the negative and the 8. Your fraction is negative. Okay, let's take a look at number 21. Whoa, now this one looks like a fraction over another fraction. Remember I remember yesterday for when we were dealing with dividing integers, I said another way I can write division is writing it as a fraction. So I'm gonna go with the first fraction divided by the second fraction. Right? It's not different if I would have gone -11 over 10 divided by 5 3/4. The same thing. I just wrote it a little bit different. Okay, so I cannot have mixed numbers. So let me worry about the mixed numbers first. I have -11 over 10 divided by my second fraction. I have a 4 at the bottom. My top number is the one that worries me. I have to go 5 times 4. I know 5 times 4 is 20, and then I'm going to add this to the top. The 3 plus 20 gives me 23. Okay, then I'm going to switch this to -11 over 10 times 4 over 23. Before I multiply straight, I see 4 and 10. I can make them smaller. I can divide them by something to make them smaller. Let me divide each by 2. So 4 divided by 2, 10 divided by 2. I made my number smaller. Okay, any more? I cannot. Good, so I'm ready to multiply it. On the top, 11 times 2 is 22. At the bottom, 5 times 23. Let me do this at the side. 23 times 5. See, 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So 115. When it comes to signs, I have a negative divided by a positive. As a matter of fact, I'll even emphasize. A negative divided by positive, my answer is negative. Then I ask myself, is the big number on top or the bottom? 22 and 115. The big number on top or the bottom? If it is at the bottom, I'm good, which is the case. My answer is -22 over 115. If it's the big number was on the top, make it an improper number. I mean, make it into a mixed number. You cannot have big fractions on the top, big numbers on the top. All right, let's see. Last one, question number 22. I see this as a big fraction. So I have a fraction over another fraction. So that's the same thing as saying 1 and 1/2 divided by 5 and 7/8. Cannot have mixed numbers. My first fraction has a 2 at the bottom, so that's not bad. And I think of here 1 times 2. And then my result, I add it to the top. 1 plus 2 on the top is 3. So I have 3 over 2 divided by, my second fraction has an 8 at the bottom. Let me multiply this. 5 times 8, that's 40. Let me add the 40 to the top. So I have 47. So from division, let me go to multiplication. I have 3 over 2 times 8 over 47. I see a 2 and an 8. I can make them smaller. Let me divide each by 2. 2 divided by 2 and 8 divided by 2. So when I multiply straight, I have 12, right? 3 times 4 is 12. At the bottom, I have 1 times 47. The big number is at the bottom, so that's good. So I have 12 over 47. Remember that when you type it in as 12 backslash 47. My numbers were all positive, so my answer is positive. So dividing fraction is not that bad.